Well, I have that it's 3 o'clock, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you for joining the Florida Center for Students with Unique Abilities October webinar, Perspectives from the Florida Department of Education. What the Florida college system and career and adult education look for when reviewing Florida post-secondary comprehensive transition program applications. My name is Drew Andrews, and I am the Technical Assistance Coordinator here at the Florida Center for Students with Unique Abilities. Our presenters today are Kathleen Taylor, Bureau Chief, Division of Career and Adult Education, along with Stephanie Leland, Director, Equity and Civil Rights Compliance, Division of Florida Colleges, Office of Academic and Student Affairs, both from the Florida Department of Education, and we greatly appreciate them being our presenters today. This webinar is being recorded and will be posted to our website within a couple of days. Handouts of the PowerPoint slides can be downloaded from the chat box. And to find the chat box, simply scroll to the bottom of the Zoom window and you'll see 7 icons, one of which says chat. And if you'll click on the chat box, it will appear to the right of your screen and you'll see both of the PowerPoints. I see that Claudia has already posted those there so that you can download those. If you have difficulty hearing the presentation, there are phone numbers to call and join via phone while following the slides online, while also and those are also being posted in the chat box also. And I see those 2 phone numbers along with the meeting ID. At the end of the webinar, you will be directed to our evaluation through a link in the chat window also. Please complete it so that we can use that information to and input when planning future webinars. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Kathleen Taylor and let her share with you from the Florida Department of Education.
Thank you so much, Drew. Hello, everybody. Stephanie and I are here together in the same office. We're so thrilled. Thank you so much to Dr. Kohler and to you, Dr. Andrews, for allowing us to join you today. Really fortuitous timing because this huge document arrived in the mail just this morning. This is the second annual report from the Florida Center for Students with Unique Abilities. And I was just kind of going through it. It is several hundred pages, but I was going through it this morning and I was mindful of all the great work that has taken place in just a very short period of time for serving our students, our adults with disabilities. Today I'm going to be talking a little bit about the perspective from career and adult education. Here in the Department of Education, the Division of Career and Adult Education is tasked with taking a look at the applications that come in from our school district, technical centers, and technical colleges. And to date, we are pleased to have just a few technical colleges who have been awarded grants from the Florida Center. We have some really great work going on in Dade County and in Broward County as well. We had an opportunity to join many of you last January at the First Institute, and we saw a lot of good work and momentum building up at that institute. And so we are looking forward to receiving some wonderful applications in the upcoming year. With that, I'm going to move to my PowerPoint now. Bear with me just a second. There we go. I hope everybody can see that on your end.
We can.
Drew, thank you so much. Okay, so we're just going to go through and share a little bit about what we look for. We actually designed this presentation from the application itself. So you're going to see a lot of repetitive language, but then I'm going to just share with you kind of behind the scenes, the look-fors of what we do in terms of the review here at the department. I wanted to start out a little bit about the review process and the cycle that we use. Of course, all of this is identified in Florida statute. There's a specific process that needs to happen. There are a certain number of days for the review. And so if you need more details on that, certainly you can get that from the Florida Center. But obviously we start out with you, our school districts. You are the ones that are interested in beginning this process to serve our students in career and adult education. So you submit the application to the Florida Center. That team there, small but mighty, conducts a very extensive review of the application, and then oftentimes may send it back to you to address some areas. Perhaps there are a few deficiencies or some clarification that's needed, and so that will go back to your district. All the while, the center is communicating with us in Tallahassee to let us know that an application has been received and kind of give us just a sneak preview of what it looks like. And then Dr. Kohler and Dr. Andrews always kind of keep us abreast of what's going on in terms of the status of the application, received, routing to you, or sending back to the district. Once it finally makes its way to Tallahassee, it's logged in here at the department, and it's distributed to the appropriate program office. So if the application is from a school district, it'll come here to my office. So I have a small and mighty team that also review the application. So we go through it, and then on occasion, we may go back to the Florida Center asking for and seeking some clarification. And we have a pretty tight time frame for that. Once we feel that it's substantially approvable, in our office, as well as based on the professional opinion of Dr. Andrews and Dr. Kohler, then we brief our division chancellor. Chancellor Rod Duckworth serves as the chancellor of the Division of Career and Adult Education, and he asked for a pretty substantive briefing on the application. Reason for that is he has to take that application and present it to the Commissioner of Education. And having sat in those briefings, I can tell you that it's not just a quick stamp of approval. It's a very extensive review. A lot of questions are asked of us. So by the time we send it to the Commissioner, we need to make sure that our T's are crossed and our I's are dotted, because we need to anticipate any question that Commissioner Stewart would have of us. So we are essentially charged with advocating for your programs here in the department. And then once we receive that approval from the Commissioner, we then send it back to the Florida Center and alert them of the department approval. And then you hear back from the Florida Center indicating that you have been a fully approved program. So this will look very familiar to you. These are all of the key elements that are identified in your application and for which we are looking for some key quality information about how you're going to use these elements and components to create a quality instructional program for your adults with disabilities. So I'm going to just kind of parse these out and take them individually. When we're looking at recruitment, obviously we're looking at traditional places that you're going to recruit your students. Obviously your parents and guardians are your number one advocates for their students. We're looking to relationships with counselors. We're looking to existing relationships with employers or future employers of your students. Of course, the students themselves, who are also learning to be great advocates for themselves. We're looking at what kinds of recruiting is being done through social media outlets. We know that the Florida Center has a great deal of information available on YouTube and other social media outlets. And so we want to see the same in turn of what you're doing in relation to social media to recruit your students. But we're also looking at a more long-term plan, more of a shared responsibility, if you will, of your district with respect to these students. And what that looks like is you're reaching out to students in high school, in the latter years of middle school, and working with those counselors and professionals in the district to recruit early. to expose those students early, even before they leave the K-12 system. There may be an opportunity for them to do a little bit of shadowing of your program or career to enrollment. This allows those K-12 students who may eventually transition your program to have some time to plan their coursework accordingly. So we're looking for a real systemic recruitment effort. Also, we want to take a look at, what kinds of students are you recruiting? And are you recruiting in the entire district or just a portion of the district? We're looking for other innovative practices around transportation and so forth. With respect to eligibility, we are obviously looking to make sure, number one, that your institution meets the eligibility requirements in statute. And I have to say that that's something that's taken on by the Florida Center. So they certainly make sure that the institution making the application is in fact eligible in Florida statute. So when it gets to us, we know that you are an eligible institution. We want to make sure that the students being served are the students for which this legislative act was created, and that was for our students with intellectual disabilities. We need to know a little bit about how you determine eligibility of students going into your program. What kind of documentation are you asking for? What does that look like? Who is making the decision at the program level as to whether or not students will be admitted into your program? We're also very interested to learn about any prerequisites that you're asking for before students are admitted into the program. We would imagine there will be fewer prerequisites from the district technical centers and technical colleges because those institutions do not confer college credit. Nevertheless, that is something we're on the lookout for. What does that look like in terms of prerequisites? What is the length of time? What is the commitment of the student? And also, if a student does not complete the prerequisites, is there an opportunity for them to go back and do some remediation, or are they taken into the program? So we consider that very carefully. We also look at referrals if referrals are required, and then who are the folks that you're looking for those referrals to the program. In terms of admission, you are required to share a little bit about the projected number of students that you plan to serve. Again, in another section of the application, we'll be looking for who are those students, what part of the county are they coming from, and have you also recruited out to your entire district. We need to see what the admission process looks like. What are the assessments, if any, that are used that may be a part of the admissions process? In career and technical education, we are very accustomed to something that's called basic skills exit requirements for certificate programs. That is a very specific provision in statute. And we also have a provision in statute where students with documented disabilities may be waived from meeting the basic skills exit requirements. And so if you are offering admission into a career certificate program, we're going to be keenly looking for what your process is for exempting students with disabilities from the basic skills exit requirements. In addition, we're looking at other kinds of assessments that you may be using as part of your admissions or your intake process. Learning styles assessment, aptitude assessment, interest assessments, and so forth. Also, we're interested to know what's the time involved, what's the commitment that's expected of the students. Is it a full-time program? Is it part-time? What are the repercussions for students if it is full-time and they're unable to attend full-time? So those are the kind of look-fors that we're looking for, and to make sure that it's been fully thought out and vetted locally. The next thing that's very important, particularly in career and technical education, is credentials. This is something that is embedded in all of our career and technical education frameworks, for which we have 300 post-secondary clock hour career and technical education frameworks in 17 different career clusters. And so we'll be looking for, in your application, the kinds of credentials that students are aspiring to. Perhaps it's a local credential that the institution is creating in consultation with the local chamber, with a local employer, with your local workforce development board. Perhaps your institution is going to be awarding what's known as occupational completion points, and those can be found in our program frameworks. The other thing we're keenly focuses on is the use of industry certification, if appropriate for some of your students, particularly for certifying agencies that allow for accommodations. This would be something that we would look for in terms of research that you've done in terms of your application as to whether or not there are industry certifications that students might be able to earn related to the particular program. And that you've also researched whether or not accommodations are allowable by that credentialing agency. Another key component for student success is advisement. So we want to hear all about your comprehensive student advisement program. And not just when students are in the program and have been admitted into the program, but before entrance into the program. That kind of goes back to recruitment. Recruitment and advisement sort of go hand in hand. But we'll be looking for the use of dedicated staff, student services staff, coaches, counselors, and any kind of other evidence you have of support personnel that will be involved in this effort of this particular program. What kinds of one-on-one advisement is available for students, either in the classroom setting or outside of the classroom setting? Self-determination, support in that area. What sort of opportunities will there be for the involvement of parents and caregivers, if appropriate, for the particular program? Support system for the lead teacher. Having worked with our programs in Dade and Broward County in the past couple years, we learned that the career and technical education teacher was not necessarily steeped in working with adults with disabilities. And so we were looking for some kind of a support system that would be available for that lead teacher. And they do have a tremendous support system that's available for the teacher and teacher of record. So what kind of support are you providing for the teachers in your setting? Next, we want to know specifically about the type of program you'll be offering and then the length of program. So what programs are going to be part of this grant? You may have just one program. It might be culinary, it might be horticulture. You may have a number of programs in your application: information technology, web development, digital design. When you have an application that is going to encompass a number of different programs, we really need to have an understanding of how students will be placed into those programs. What was the determination for how students were placed? Will there be enough of the program for a student to complete the entire length of the program? Or is your local program just offering a portion? If so, we need to kind of understand how much time, what the schedule will be, what are the competencies that will be taught during this period of time. And of course, most importantly, how does the program or programs in your application prepare students for employment? And we'll talk a little bit more about employment as a core component of your application in just a moment. One of the key strengths of the program that's available through the Florida Center is this notion of integration, but social and academic. And so our students really are members of their college campuses. And if you're just visiting a college campus, you would have no idea. There's no way to know which students are which students are getting their bachelor's degree in nursing, and which students are part of this particular program. And that is the whole point, that you have a thoroughly integrated program, both the social aspect and the academic aspect. We'll start with social, for example. Students in career programs, career and technical education programs, would have access to participate in career and technical student organizations. These are programs like Skills USA, Health Occupation Students of America, Future Business Leaders of America, and so they've had this opportunity. Also, the college and career clubs, the transition clubs, that would be another example of social integration. Other extracurricular clubs. We'll be interested to get your feedback on that. In our tech centers and tech colleges, they don't participate in NCAA athletics, but I have learned through the years that there's a lot of intramural athletics that are part of those communities. And so we'll be looking for opportunities for students to have those sorts of inclusive experiences. Other events on campus that students should have an opportunity to be a part of. Any sort of rallies or special guests that are coming to visit the campus. So the point is, our students have full access to a wide range of activities, and not just in the classroom, but outside of the classroom. In terms of the academic integration, certainly we want to see our students be integrated into a regular class setting with peers and colleagues who are preparing for the same fields. We know that our students may need a little bit more support. We know in those settings, students support one another. We certainly would expect to see students receiving some form of credit for their coursework. I use the term credit-bearing courses here, and while technically technical centers do not confer college credit, they award clock hour credit. So it is credit on a transcript. Students have participated in the a course in the statewide course numbering system that is transferable and recognized among other public institutions in Florida that offer the very same courses. In terms of academic integration, we're also looking to see if your program has non-credit coursework as part of the application as well. Something else, I just mentioned the importance of generating a transcript. That is very important for students. They have that opportunity to generate a transcript from your institution. Ideally, we'd like to see that students have participated in what we call the statewide course numbering courses. If we don't have that, we'd like to see a transcript where alternative methods of proficiency can be documented. Maybe outside of a transcript, that would be through authentic projects, portfolios, hands-on demonstrations, other methods, again, for determining proficiency and integration of the academic component of your program. The other key component, of course, for students is we're getting them ready for the workplace. And so a key component of your application is for you to share a little bit about what that looks like from the student perspective. Will they have an opportunity to participate in internships and work-based learning? In some cases, your program may employ the cooperative method of instruction, which means during actual class time, students may be leaving your campus and going to a work-based learning center to acquire the competencies that they would in the classroom. Or work-based learning may occur outside of the class setting. So there are a lot of different methods for your institution to employ work-based learning or internships. Business involvement in your program is absolutely key, either on-site or off-site. And so having evidence of strong business partnerships is a very important component of your application. Assistance from vocational rehab and with job coach assistance. That is If you're going to have a strong work-based learning component, then ideally you have threaded in and braided your program with existing resources through vocational rehab. This is a little bit redundant, but another component, and it stands on its own, is for you to provide evidence of your strong business partnerships and the employment opportunities that will be available for students, not only while they're enrolled, but when they complete, when they transition from your program, and that is the goal. They're going to complete and transition on into employment, into gainful employment, in the field in which your program prepared them for. And so to do that, you have to have strong business and employer-led partnerships. So the indicators are set. You know, there's not a whole lot for us, except we are certainly looking at wages associated with the occupations your program is training for. We'll be looking for the opportunity for students to actually complete the program versus offering just a part of the program. We're keenly interested in the kinds of industry certifications your students can earn. This is certainly a value-added credential for your students in terms of wages. Students complete our programs, and when they hold an industry certification in welding or aviation, oftentimes that commands a higher wage and can sometimes command advanced placement into a company or an employer. We're really interested in the student demographics of your program, and then the other items here that you see. Sustainability. We all have these great ideas, and we're energized, and we have lots of enthusiasm, but sometimes our plans are a little short-sighted. And so that's why we really want to see some thoughtful information provided by you, the applicant, of how you are sustaining this program. What is your plan for the next 5 years? What kind of funding? I mentioned braided funding and other braided resources. What sorts of braided funding opportunities have you identified, and are you working towards commitment of those alternative funding sources? What does enrollment look like in terms of the future, and staffing as well, in addition to your operational expenses? So that is a very important component, and one that we believe will have a significant impact on the success of the program, is a well thought out sustainability plan. So I have finished up here with the perspective of career and adult education and our look-fors in the application. I'm going to now shut down my presentation. Drew, do we have any questions right now, or should we move to Stephanie?
I think let's go to Stephanie's, and then we'll do the questions at the end. And I wanted to remind everybody that the PowerPoints are over in the chat box, and the chat box can be found by taking your cursor to the bottom of the Zoom window, and there are 7 icons there. One of those says chat, and if you look over in the chat window, you'll see both of the PowerPoints right there, so that folks can have a copy of your PowerPoints. Thank you, Kathleen.
Thanks, Drew. We're going to move to Stephanie now, and we're going to share this. Okay, I think we already shared it. Let's just get this going here. Okay, you can see our PowerPoint okay?
Yes,
okay.
We can. Yes.
With drivers, all right.
But I need visual aids. Okay, I am Stephanie. I am responsible for providing technical support to the state colleges as it relates to civil rights issues. So basically what I will be responsible for is just highlighting how we try not to discriminate against individuals as it relates to disability. Okay? So my PowerPoint presentation was developed basically to make sure when we submit our applications that we are steering clear of any forms of discrimination as it relates to disability. When that application is received by my office, I am responsible for it in its entire content. I do not have a team to review the application. Once I am completed with the application, I have to submit what we call a briefing. That briefing goes to the chancellor, and she in turn reviews that application. Prior to her reviewing process, it goes through the associate chancellor, who is Corinda Barrett, and then the vice chancellor, which is Carrie Henderson. So we somewhat have a reviewing team. Okay, so let's see. Let's click here. The next slide. What I thought was important, being that we work in this world with disabilities and other civil rights issues, sometimes we get a little complacent with some of the definitions. We either get part of it or none of it. So I thought it would be helpful to just browse through the definition just quickly. I'm sure most of us know what it says, so this will be just a review for us. And there may be some individuals on the system who may be new to the program area, so they may need a refresher course also. The definition of discrimination. When an individual is a disabled person, or a person is perceived to have a disability, or a person associated with that disabled person is subjected to or different unequal treatment when it's based on that individual's disability. And of course, we know a disability is any major life activity that has been limited, be it hearing, seeing, touching, feeling, being able to clothe yourself, being able to drive a vehicle for yourself. Just as simple as that. Let's see, your next one, definition of intellectual disability. Basically, when an individual is not able to function intellectually or through an adaptive behavior, that individual has an intellectual disability. We try and make sure we are following the guidelines as it relates to our legislative obligations for students with disabilities. When we look at that application, our definition, our laws are right at hand. If you can't remember those definitions when you are developing that application, please go back and look at that information. Sometimes little small details you miss sometimes, and it's up to us to catch that so that all the students are being provided a quality education such as the next individual who may not have a disability. Those particular legislative sections would be Section 504, Section 508. And do you need me to go into them individually, or are we pretty much familiar with these? Okay. Section 504 deals with, let's back up one. I'm jumping ahead of myself. Section 504 basically deals with if an individual has a disability, he or she is guaranteed the right to be able to participate in, in a program that has been federally funded, irregardless of that individual's protected class status. And this one would be his or her disability. They are allowed to be educated, they are allowed to have fun, and they are also allowed to be employed if that's the case. Section 508 is a requirement for all electronics and information that is developed, say for your computer systems. Is it accessible for individuals who may be disabled. Is that information being transferred electronically in such a fashion that that person, be it a physical or a mental limitation, are they able to access that same computer, that same workstation as the next person who may not have a disability? Americans with Disabilities Amendment Act of 1990, it basically identifies individuals who have a disability, that they're granted the same right as the next individual. They're able to participate in any programs that are Title I funded, Title II funded, Title III and IV, irregardless of the institution's ability to make that accommodation. Is irrespective of that. If you have been funded by a governmental agency to provide some or any type of education, a service, an accommodation, those institutions must follow the ADA Amendment Act guidelines. And the neat thing about what I do, we're also responsible for doing on-site reviews. So a lot of these programs, they come up under review, our purview when we do on-site reviews. And some individuals, they sometimes take it for granted, such as being able to use a public facility. The stalls, such as your restroom, may not be situated such that those individuals who have a physical or mental limitation are not able to use your restrooms, just a simple restroom. So we have to go in and ensure that those amenities are at the right height, the right length, that those individuals are able to function just as the next individual is able to function. The Assistive Technology Act, this basically indicates that any institution, if you're receiving federal funds, that you are providing assistive technology to those individuals with disabilities, irregardless of the age or irregardless of the disability. The next one that I would like to look over is the Architectural Barrier Act. This act helps us stay in compliance, so to speak, as it relates to making sure that our standards are such that an individual who may be physically challenged is able to access that building, such as you or I or anyone who may not have a foreseeable or a seeable disability is able to enter into that building. If we are not mindful of our structures, we are ourselves discriminating against individuals. We had an incident where a restroom stall was being used as a storage closet inside of a building. And they did not understand that that should be a fully accessible restroom for individuals with physical limitations. And we had to go through an enormous amount of conversation to get this rectified. We should not have had to go to that measure, but we did. So just keep in mind some things that may not look like you're discriminating against an individual. You may in fact be. Let's see, next slide. What we look for when we look at your application, basically we look at the application. We don't alter the information. We use the information based on how the center is asking for it. So we took the questions. How is the institution, how will you identify or verify the students that you are planning to admit into your program? Are you identifying those individuals who may have less of a disability? Are you verifying that they do have a disability? Are you admitting eligible students? to enroll in the program, who are eligible, that is, to receive financial aid. Who are you admitting? Are you admitting students who may look like the general population, or are you admitting students who are going to fit the bill based on your personal agenda? So what we try and do is we critique that application as such that you, the institution, is giving that student or the student a fair chance. We also look at the identification of credentialing upon completion. You know, what will the student actually receive once they have completed the program? Will they be workforce ready? Is it a program, a babysitting program? Is it a program that's basically designed to help them be functioning in society? What type of program is it? Is it just a program for someone to get credit just to say, yes, we have a program here at our institution? What type of technical assistance will be provided? Do you have the support staff that will be necessary in order for the students to matriculate through the system? Do you have the proper advising team? Do you have your student success center set up such that you're not catering just to those students who are succeeding? Or are you ensuring that integration is being processed throughout the entire program? You're including all of your students. You're making sure that the technical support or the technical assistance that is being provided to the students is actually beneficial. It just doesn't look good on paper. You know, how are you using your advising? Are you using the latest advising tools? Are your advisors or counselors qualified to help the program be a success? The next one, we basically touched on that one, integration of students with intellectual disabilities with other students. Are you integrating the students? Are you segregating those students, or are you ensuring that those students are a part of the real campus experience? Is that student able to network with the next student that doesn't look like him or her? What tools are being used to assess the interests and the skills of your participants? Will the program benefit a student who is able to do well, or is that program designed to only address those students that you know will not make it? Are you giving each and every student a fair chance? What type of tools are you using to assess their skill set? What type of performance indicators are being used to determine the student's progress? What type of indicators are you using to ensure that the student is not being set up for failure? How often are you interacting with the students when the program is actually approved, if you should get it? What type of indicators are you going to use? How in touch are you with the students? Or is it just a program just to be a program? Or is it a program designed to actually help the student? Those are the things that we actually look for. As it relates to, is the student going to receive actual credit for taking the course? Or are the students going to be able to audit or participate in the courses offered by the institution that they do not receive academic credit for? Recently, we had a phone call with a young lady who had received a special diploma, and she wanted to start receiving credit for the courses that she was taking. But because of the path that was chosen, she could not earn credit. So a question that I want to ask once we're released to the body is, will the standard diploma that is being issued to date, will that standard diploma bypass this issue that that student is having right now, so that we won't have that issue to come up later? Enrollment in non-credit bearing courses and non-degree courses. I think it's just fair if, when we design programs, we need to design programs to give the students options as to whether or not they are degree-seeking courses that will give them a degree and not just a certificate, if they are able to do that, if the skill set is such that they can do that. I think it's important that that program, yes, those programs need to have content that's at the same rigor, quality of rigor, as your other programs at the institutions that are not designed for individuals with intellectual disabilities. I think that we must always keep in mind that just because the student may look different does not mean that they are any less smarter. Benefits of an inclusive education. In summary, I think the ultimate goal, well, I know the ultimate goal is to ensure that the participants are able to receive a quality education, and that they have the same experience that's rewarding to them as any other student, so that they could be productive in society. While that student's educational experience should foster a positive relationship with the community, it should also encourage independency. The student's character and understanding of self should be positively influenced, and that's where that advising is critical and the counseling is critical. We should also ensure that independence and self-determination is encouraged. His or her ability to function in society should be developed in order to obtain gainful employment. And since we are in a workforce era, it's important if that individual, that participant in your program, if they choose to move further into the workforce, that program should be designed such that they have received an internship or cooperative agreement, some type of element needs to be in place where they have the ability to get a taste of the real work environment. To that end, the participant is able to receive a quality education or be a participant in activities in an environment that is free from any form of discrimination based on a protected class status. And in this particular instance, it would be disability. And my last slide says simply this: inclusive education is a right, not a privilege. We have a right to educate individuals who are able to attend school in a type of setting such as in a college setting. It's our responsibility to protect and to preserve those, persevere and make sure that those individuals are able to matriculate and have some fun in the process of doing so. The college life, so to speak, yes, it is a place that we come to get educated, but it is also a place that we come to prepare ourselves for the future outside of that campus, that college campus. And we, as the individuals, we are responsible for doing that. That ends my presentation. Any information that you should need, you can jot down that email address or my contact number, and we'll turn it back over to Drew.
All right. Thank you, Stephanie, and thank you, Kathleen. These have been two awesome presentations talking about career and adult education, and also the Florida college system and how each of them look at the Florida Post-Secondary Comprehensive Transition Program applications that they receive whenever they receive them for approval. over on the, for each of you, you can unmute your mic if someone has a question and ask that question, or you can write the question in the chat box. And to find the chat box again, just move your cursor to the bottom of the screen and you'll see chat, and the chat window will open, and you'll also see the two presentations, the FCSUA webinar and then PowerPoint for FCSUA 10/2/2018 are the two PowerPoint presentations right there. We're also going to post an evaluation on today's webinar, and for your feedback and suggestions for future webinars. And there's the evaluation link that just simply popped up right there from Claudia, who is our webmaster and all things technical here at the Florida Center for Students with Unique Abilities. And from Linda there, I believe that the governing board of the institution submitting the proposal have to approve the proposal, and there certainly has to be a signature from the president of the college or the university or the superintendent of a school district whenever those proposals are submitted, if that's specifically what you're referring to there, yes. And then the proposals for universities go to the Board of Governors, and Linda Page is associated with the Board of Governors. And so in an upcoming webinar, we may be looking at Florida post-secondary comprehensive transition programs that are submitted to the Board of Governors if they're coming from a university. So I'm going to take just a few minutes here and allow you time. You'll see a little microphone in the window where your name or picture or video is appearing, and you can unmute and ask a question, or again, you can type the question in the chat box, which probably is to your right. It's to my right. Yes, thank you, Linda, for mentioning this. There are 48 college and career transition clubs in Florida. And if you want to know more about that, just visit our website, which is fcsua.org, and scroll all the way to the bottom of the page, and you'll see information there on college and career transition clubs. And that's for any high school, public high school or private not-for-profit high school in the state of Florida that serves students grades 9 through 12. And it's an opportunity for students to start exploring Florida post-secondary comprehensive transition programs, and that's students with intellectual disabilities, students with other disabilities, and students without disabilities are members of that club, those clubs. And there's a $6,000 resource that we can provide for this year, and then again next year if you submit your end of the year report, that can help because these are clubs just like any other club in the state. I also want to let you know that at any time you can reach out to the Florida Center for Students with Unique Abilities for any questions that you may have, and we may need to get information from the Department of Education or from the Board of Governors, but we'll respond to your question that you may have. And if you're interested in creating a Florida post-secondary comprehensive transition program at a career technical center or a state college or a university, please reach out to us. We're happy to plan an on-site visit or a web meeting with you to explain more, to answer questions that you might have. I'm not hearing any questions or seeing any questions in the chat box. And so that will end our webinar today. And I really want to thank everyone for taking the time to join us today. And I want to especially thank our presenters today, Kathleen Taylor and Stephanie Leland from the Florida Department of Education. Two very informative presentations that were very clear, and I appreciate all the time that you all took to put those together, because that information was very valuable. Anything that you all would like to say before we end the webinar?
Thank you to all of you for tuning in today, and we are anxiously awaiting your wonderful applications.
Well,
right.
Recently, let's see, the last application we received, I believe, was St. Petersburg.
Right.
So we're excited about them. Actually, that came about with a little bit of push from the on-site review. I said to them, you know, the money is there, and they were more or less afraid. They were thinking about sustainability. It's like, okay, let's not get stuck there. Let's not get stuck there. The money is there, and she's trying to give it away. So let's just get some of that money and get the ball rolling.
Right. And so if you apply for a Florida Post-Secondary Comprehensive Transition Program, there are Florida Post-Secondary Comprehensive Transition Program Startup and Enhancement grants that are $300,000 that can support startup or enhancement of a program. Along with that, there are student scholarships for students to attend an approved program, and those are $7,000 a year. And so Florida has really put, our legislature really put some support, some financial resources in place to support student success for students with intellectual disabilities. So anything that we can do here at the center to help you to move forward in your area, we're happy to do that. Again, I'm not going to close the webinar just yet. If you need to click on one of the, actually Claudia has posted the application, the grant, and the scholarship information over in the chat window. And so I'm going to leave that up so that you can click on that. And if you scroll up a little higher, you can see the PowerPoint presentations. Again, this webinar has been recorded, and it will be on our website probably tomorrow, but for sure by the next day, along with the PowerPoint presentations. So again, thank you for joining us today, and if there are no further questions, we're going to end the meeting, and I wish everyone a good evening. Thank you.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.